Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me in the locker room on this Thursday, January 11th. I'm Alan Locher. Actor Dominic Burgess is here today to talk about his almost 20-year career in film and television. He has appeared in over 30 primetime roles in some of the most popular hit series to hit the small screen. He received a ton of media attention and acclaim for his portrayal of Victor Buono in Ryan Murphy's Feud. He recently appeared in Murphy's new season of American Horror Story, Delicate. His first television credit was on the BBC series and worldwide hit, Doctor Who. Dominic moved to Hollywood in 2007 and made subsequent appearances on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and The Leftovers, to name a very small few. He became a regular on the Disney hit series A.N.T and appeared as a recurring guest on The Magicians, The Good Place, and The Flash. And he also appeared as Mr. Vup, I think, in Star Trek Picard. Please help me welcome to the locker room for the first time, Dominic Burgess. Hey, Dominic.
Hello. Hi, Alan. Okay, before we get going, I just have to preface that if I'm pulling weird faces, this is Nub Nub. This is Nub Nub. Nub Nub
Oh,
has three legs. Nub Nub has a tendency to chew flesh if he wants
oh,
attention, and so I set everything up, and now if you hear me
that sounds like a
scream in
Ryan
pain.
Murphy show right there.
So there might be moments when you're mid conversation that I get distracted by biting and pain. That is what's going on. I don't want you to think that I am being rude.
I won't at all. It's such a pleasure to meet you, and thank you, Stephen Bergman, for connecting us.
Yes, thank you.
Before we begin, I noticed backstage. Please tell me about that extensive media collection behind your head.
Mm. I'm a physical media collector. I love films. I love films and television, and I collect Blu-rays. That's my vice. That's what I do. My fiance thinks it's getting a little bit out of hand, but I think that it is a perfectly cromulent collection.
Is it organized?
Yes, it's alphabetical. Alphabetical all the way along, and then down at the bottom it skips to TV and goes alphabetical again.
Wow. How many would you say are there?
Um, Maybe 1,500 now.
Woo-hoo!
Um, I just like having them on hand. I find myself sometimes getting frustrated if I want to watch a film and I go onto streaming and I have to search and find out, if Aliens is on Hulu or if it's on Netflix or if it's on Disney or if it's on this or if it's or maybe it's not on any of those, and then I
Yeah,
have to rent it for $3.99, and I'd just rather have it to
nice.
own, and then it's there. And I also think, you know, so many films go on streaming and then they're sort of in your face for 2 months and then they fall out of consciousness. And I just like having the spine and the library there to be like, oh yeah, I do feel like watching that tonight. And it's just I just like having
Does y-
physical media.
does your fiance like movies as much as you?
Not as much as me. I had to do a whole lot of education on 80s and 90s movies for him. So I introduced him to Aliens, Gremlins, a whole bunch of classic stuff that he had never seen. But now his film knowledge is growing.
It's expanded. Is he in the same business at all?
He's in stunts. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about what he's working on right now, but he's in Vancouver doing some stunts on a movie
Okay.
right now.
A stunt
And we actually
coordinator?
no, he doesn't coordinate. He used to do some coordinating, I think, on Arrow, the CW show for a little while. And I'm so sorry, I'm being chewed.
Yeah.
Um, and we actually met. I was working on a show called The Magicians up in Vancouver, and he was working up there on I think the third Planet of the Apes film at the same time.
Okay.
And then we ran into each other, and then we went for a date at the Winking Judge, which was a fake British pub down there, I think near Robson and Barad, and it no longer exists. It closed down, but Yeah, and then here we are 8 years later.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Where did the love of movies begin for you?
Oh gosh. I've always loved films and storytelling, and um we used to, I've always been more of an indoor kid than a sports kid, an outdoor kid. And on weekends when I was growing up, we used to go to the video store, and I myself would only rent Gremlins and Transformers the movie, the animated, like 1984 movie, and I would rent them and I'd just switch them out every week. It would be Gremlins one week and then Transformers the movie the next week, and forever it went on until that video store closed down or we moved out of that catchment area. Um, but yeah, I was raised on X-Files and Buffy and Twin Peaks and Star Trek and all this sort of American programming, and I just love stories and storytelling.
My husband and I connected very, very intensely on the Buffy thing.
Well, you did.
Yes, loved
Yeah,
Buffy, loved
it's a
Buffy.
good show. It's still waiting for a really good high definition transfer to come on
Ah.
that's color
I'm
corrected
also surprised it
properly. And
hasn't been remade yet.
yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that I'm sure 5, 10 years down the line,
Yeah,
everything is cyclical.
it'll be Buffy's daughter or son or
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll watch it. Sure, why not? I'm in. I'm in.
it was, yeah, it was phenomenal. Take me back to England. What was your childhood like in Stoke-on-Trent, correct?
Stoke-on-Trent, that's right. Pretty quiet. I never really left. I didn't really leave Stoke-on-Trent until I went to drama school. When I finished high school, I took a gap year and I worked at a summer camp in Michigan for a few months, and then I flew to LA and then drove back across to New York. So I'd actually seen more of the United States than I have done of England. I've never been to Scotland. I've never been to Ireland. My parents didn't travel. My parents have never stepped foot on a plane. So
Ah,
they were always working, and I'm very grateful. But I left drama school with sort of this hunger to be like, I've got to leave, I've got to go, I've got to. And because I was raised on all that American programming, that is, I think, why ultimately I was like, I've got to leave England, I've got to go somewhere new, I've got to see new things, and got to get out of town.
I love that. I was going to ask about Gremlins and all of those. You must know every line if you watch them as much as you.
Yeah, and it's still it's still my Christmas go-to movie. I have a life-size gremlin over in the corner of the room over there. I actually have one right here who's sitting on my little
Oh
Game of
my God!
Thrones
Do
thing.
you know the artist Bright Light, Bright Light?
Bright light, bright light. No, I don't think I do. Sorry, I'm putting that back up there.
He is
Um,
he's an independent singer and songwriter. Amazing. I love him.
mm,
He's from England. Lives in New York now. But Bright Light comes from Gremlins.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you should check him
Well,
out.
now I'm gonna have to do
He's
some
very,
digging.
yeah, definitely. He's fantastic. But that's what made me think of it because I know that that came from Gremlins.
Uh-huh.
You talk about the fact that your high school theater had a big impact on you and your decision, for this career path. Talk about some of that.
Yeah, I went to a school that was sort of very academically driven. So, a lot of doctors and lawyers and people came out of my school, which is wonderful. But that wasn't really what made my heart beat. And because I'm a big guy, I'm 6'5", and I'm a big guy, and so there was sort of this push towards making me play rugby, which is not my speed. at all, and the only way to really, put an end to all that was be like, "Ah, you know what? I'm gonna go to drama club after school instead," without really having, a deep interest in it, and the first year that I was in drama club, they did a production of Cabaret, and I was just in the background, and that was kinda like, "Oh, this is fun, this is fine, it just gets me out of doing any kind of sport, that's okay with me." Um
Anything. I agree. Anything.
Anything. Um, and then the next year, they had auditions for a play called Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, and, I think like a lot of things where you go in and you're kinda like, "Yeah, I'll give it a go, sure," without putting that pressure on yourself. I went and I had a good time, and I got the role of Biff Loman, and, yeah, from that moment on, it was really, like a fire being ignited under me that was like, "Oh, I enjoy this. I enjoy reading the text, and I enjoy performing, and I enjoy the rehearsal process, and I enjoy exploring and playing," and then from there, I really kinda got invested in school drama, and then originally my intention was to study veterinary medicine, and that slowly fell by the wayside bit by bit by bit. And then by the time I was doing my A levels, it was really, you know, my heart was set in stone that I wanted to go to drama school and uh, pursue acting. And then once I auditioned and I was very fortunate that I got a scholarship to the drama school I ended up going to, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to go. Um, that sort of sealed the deal, I think. That was it. Off to the
Wow.
races.
Off to the races. I think I did Arthur Miller's The Crucible in high school.
Ah, yes, uh-huh.
Uh, that's funny. Who are some of your mentors? Do you have mentors from high school theater or from the drama school?
Like I said, my school was sort of very academically driven, and I loved the opportunity to do plays on stage, but it wasn't really what my high school at that time, at least I think it might have changed now,
Mm,
since then. It wasn't really what they pushed at the time, but I had a wonderful teacher, Mrs. Godridge, and Mr. Cash, who, were advocates for putting on these productions and school plays, and I wasn't lazy at school, um, but I would really only invest my time into things that interested
mhm.
me. So, I was interested in English anytime that we had to write our own stories or create. Anytime mathematics is involved, I curl up into a fetal position and my nose bleeds, and that's not for me. So I enjoy learning by doing. I have to if you're gonna do an experiment, if you're gonna show me how combustible a liquid is, you better put it in that container and show me it exploding. Otherwise, I don't care about, that stuff. That makes
Uh,
me sound terrible.
no, but
But it is what it is.
I agree a lot on that. Things that interest you
Yeah.
fuel the engagement.
And there's things now in hindsight, now that I am acting, that I wish, looking back, I'd be like, "Ah, Dominic, you fool, you should have invested more time in languages and in German and in French and things that could help your career now." But, at the time, then je parlais un peu. Oh, well, it's
There you
fine.
go.
We are where we
There you
are.
go. In 2005, you landed your first TV role, in a small hit called Doctor Who. Were
Yeah,
you a
Doctor Who.
fan? Were you a
Yes.
fan?
I was. Sylvester McCoy was my doctor, the Doctor and Ace, and I used to watch them in the 80s. They and Tom Baker. I remember watching Tom Baker episodes and really loving Tom Baker episodes. And um, when I left drama school in London, um, I found that I was having a pretty hard time getting auditions. I was very lucky if I was getting an audition every 4, 5, 6 months, and then that sort of pressure sinks in that like, "Oh, I'm gonna book this job, otherwise I'm never gonna work. Nothing's ever gonna happen." And you have I had a day job at a store called HMV and at a real estate agents on the weekends, and these auditions would come in, and they'd feel like, "Oh my gosh, please rescue me." Um,
Was that the record
and
store?
HMV, yes, yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
was actually I ran the DVD section very
I
well.
figured
It
that
was
when you said it. I was like, I
it
know
was
that those initials.
Yeah, that's right. And I ran the DVD section at the time, and
Discount on
that's
that
where
helps.
that's where my physical media collection really stems from, because you get staff discount, and then if there's holiday discount on top of that, be like, I'll take a DVD home for £1.50. Thank you very much. But yes, Doctor Who. I think they announced it in the trades, and it was in the press, and then. I found out who was casting it, who's a casting director called Andy Pryor, who does a lot of wonderful British television. And I wrote him a letter and said, "Oh my gosh, Doctor Who is coming back. I would do anything on Doctor Who." And he very graciously let me come in and audition. And then I got my little role on Doctor Who. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and then 20 years later, pretty much copy pasted, repeated that when they said that Star Trek Picard was coming out
I
and that
I know.
Patrick Stewart was coming, and I was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to write a handwritten note to Liz Dean, and I'm going to drop it off at the office, and I'm going to say, every night after high school, I used to race home and sit down in front of Next Generation, and I would play a sliding door in the background of this show. And again, very graciously, Liz let me come in and audition, and um, I think when your love for something is genuine, and you target something, you're like, oh, Star Trek, yes, please. Because I love Next Gen, I love Star Trek Voyager, and yeah, I have a Voyager model right here. Those kind of things get me excited, and I think it sort of is
But it's a
it
great
comes from a
lesson for
genuine
people
place.
watching. You want something bad enough, find a way, write a letter. I mean, how hard,
Yeah,
that's huge.
I wouldn't do it. I don't do it for every show, but if there's something that my heart is kind of set on, then as long as you research and it's coming from a place of authenticity, then I think, then why not? This is my job, and this is what I want to do. And Star Trek was a big proponent of me moving to the United States, because I was like, that's the kind of programming that I want to be in. Those are the stories I want to tell. So yeah, that's my
I
Doctor Who and
mean,
Picard
getting the
story.
phone call for Doctor Who and for Star Trek that they have these roles for you must have been, I mean, did you
Yeah,
hang up?
I mean, I think Doctor Who was so big because it was my first TV job. That was going to be my first, like, oh my gosh. And then Picard, I think I cried. I think because it had been. I collected the VHSs of Voyager, and I collected the Airfix models that you used to make and put lights inside, and so then to just be a part of that universe, what a treat. And not only on top of that, when so I'm going to go off on such a tangent. I'm so sorry, Alan.
No,
Um,
I love it. I mean, because I grew up TV big for me, even I started this show at the start of the pandemic, and I got to interview Jacqueline Smith from Charlie's Angels, and she was my
uh-huh.
everything. She was my everything as a
Yeah.
kid, and that was a dream come true.
I think Picard was just all around so special, because when you're a guest star actor, a lot of times, you're jumping from show to show, and you do one episode here, one episode there, 4 episodes there, 3 episodes there, and you're sort of like the new kid at school, wherever you go. And so sometimes you get to a production and it's like, okay, yeah, people are nice and this is a job, and then I'll leave, and it is what it is. And sometimes you work on a job and it's actively hostile and it's not a pleasant experience. And Picard was beginning to end. I feel like people say never meet your heroes, but from beginning to end, it was such a pure delight, from wardrobe to the prosthetic fitting. And I went up to Santa Clarita, and then the Neville Page, who had done the prosthetics, was like, "Hey, do you want to go meet Jonathan Frakes?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to go meet Jonathan Frakes." And he walked me into the cafeteria where they were at the time because they'd broken for lunch. And Jonathan Frakes saw me in the doorway, and he just stood up and flung his arms open and was like, "Mr. Vup, welcome to the family," and hugged and just
Wow.
exuded such warmth. And he ran such a warm, pleasant set that, and then anytime I'm on set, I'll always, if I can, if I feel like it's appropriate, be like, "Hey, do you mind if I just sit at Video Village and I'll be very quiet and I'll just watch how you're directing?" He's like, "Yeah, come sit." And he'd tell stories, and just a magical experience all around.
That's really, for every Trekkie listening, because it's something that you did have such a passion for, and for it to
Mhm.
to live up to that, it
Yes.
has is beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Arriving in Hollywood for you from Stoke-on-Trent, was that a huge
Uh-huh.
adjustment for you when you first got there?
Um You know, not too bad. I think a lot of people move to LA and it's not really their town, but I moved here November 2007, just as the other writers' strike was just starting up back then.
Welcome
Um,
to LA.
Welcome to LA. But actually, I I feel like I met more casting directors in the first 3 weeks of being in Los Angeles than I had done in 3 years of being in London. And it felt like such whiplash that I was like, "Oh, well, this is how an acting career feels. This is what auditioning feels like. This is what going to commercial auditions feels. This is what oh, now it feels like a job." It didn't feel like a hobby that you sort of picked up every 4 or 5 months. And yeah, I jumped into classes right away. I love being in class. I got a day job at a place called the ArcLight Movie Theater right away. And so I feel like within the first month, I'd met so many people in classes and at my day job that I had a community very quickly of people that had moved here and were starting their careers. Um, so I felt at home very, very fast, and I love Los Angeles. I know it's not for everybody, but, yeah, this is home. When I fly out of state or out of the country and I come back now and I land at LAX, I'm like, "Ah, home." Um, so yeah, it's nice. I love it.
And it was always Hollywood. It was never a thought that New York would be first for you?
No, I don't think so, because again, I'm pretty savvy when it comes to research in terms of like, okay, well, let me look. These are my dream shows. It's Lost, it's X-Files, it's Buffy, it's Twin Peaks, it's X-Files, it's these shows. And even though X-Files for a while was in Vancouver and Lost was in Hawaii, everything's still sort of cast out of LA. And I love theater. I love theater. Um, but I felt like at the time, that was what sort of New York was more geared
Mhm.
towards. And again, I, um, I love New York. I love New York in short stints after 2 weeks of rush hour and bustling for trains and, the sort of congestion and the people. It's not my town to live in. I love it. It's just not the pace for me.
Uh, any desire to do a Broadway show?
Oh yeah, I go to a Broadway show for like 3 months, 6 months, and then I think I'd feel like, okay. Thank
Time
you
to
so
go
much. I was
home.
in New York, I was filming in New York for 6 months, for Doctor Death, and that was right in the middle of lockdown. That was sort of
Mm.
October 2020 into March 2021, and so everything was shut down and, um, not to, minimize anything, but New York was glorious because you could walk out on the streets and the streets were empty and you could just sort of walk up Second all the way up and make a left and hit Central Park, and everything was very quiet, and that kind of pace was nice. And then I've just been in New York more recently on and off for American Horror Story, and Midtown is crazy, and it is,
Yeah, it's so true because
it's
I lived in this city and have worked there for 30 something years. Uh,
uh-huh,
my husband and I left in 2015, and when the pandemic hit and our friends who were still there would have pictures up online of what New York looked like, I was so
uh-huh.
jealous not to experience that for that purpose only, not to take
Yes, yeah,
anything,
yeah.
you know, um, it was wild to see the streets as empty, sort of
Yeah,
apocalyptic from a TV series that we watch,
yeah,
but
yeah. Well,
Times
it's not
Square,
anymore. New York is back.
no, yeah, Times
New York is
Square
back.
with not a soul, right. You didn't
Yes,
experience
yeah,
that. You
yeah.
when you were just there, you didn't experience that at all.
Nope, nope. It's back in
Yeah,
full force, and,
full
it is
force. What was
terrifying
your
for me.
first
It was
role? Do you remember your first role that you got while you were when you moved here?
yes, I do. I think it was a commercial. I think it was for some sort of energy drink, uh, and I think it was Ali Day, that cast me in it, and I remember I think we were filming up in Eagle Rock in a house, and I was legitimately drinking this energy drink all day, and, you're young and you're doing it, and I remember at the end of the day, it had been a long day of shooting, like 14, 15 hours, and my mind was exhausted, but was my body was moving.
That's
That was
so
my
funny.
first job. And then my first television job out here was Leverage, which I think has just come back again for Leverage Redemption. Everything comes back. Everything is
I mean,
cyclical.
it's crazy how everything comes back, yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously, it all comes back. When did writing, producing, and directing enter your world for yourself?
Um, Gosh, again, I've always loved storytelling, and I've always had stories and ideas in my head that I wanted to tell. Um, and I again love being in class. So I take classes at a place called the BGB Studios here in Los Angeles, and they had a new writing component that I jumped into, um, with the teacher Alexa Alamani, and she uh, blew the doors off, in terms of figuring out structure and, what an inciting incident is, and here's your act 1 turn, and this is what happens in act 2, and here's what goes on in act 3, and then for television, and so once I had been in that class and, uh, sort of had my mind blown by that, then I was at my computer being like, "Oh my gosh, all these things that I wanted to get out," um, which I did, and then, wanted to direct, and I wrote a short film in that class, called Sam Did It while I was, working on Feud, and then very sheepishly asked the wonderful Alfred Molina if he would be in it, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll be in it." Bless him, bless that man. Uh, and then from there, I used Sam Did It to jump onto Ryan Murphy's director mentorship program, and so was shadowing on 911.
Oh,
um,
wow.
and then directed another short with a friend of mine last year, Jeff Lorch, who wrote something. And then I have these sort of a stockpile of feature films now that are all sort of spinning their wheels at different stages of development. Some of them aren't moving at all. Some are moving. Some got stopped because of COVID. Some are kind of under option that I don't know what's going on in Australia, and all these spinning plates that I enjoy it because when the phone isn't ringing with auditions, that I can sit down,
Yeah.
open my laptop, and I can feel like I am being creative in some way. So yeah,
Your
it's been
enthusiasm
good.
is so infectious, and it must be to the people you're pitching to too, because somebody who grew up with the love of movies, you're speaking a language that they all understand.
Yeah, I think I work with a DP, Andrew Shankweiler, and I love working with him because we have such a shorthand in terms of saying, "Oh, I want it to kinda look like this," and I can throw out more obscure films and be like, "You know that shot in Alien 3 where this," and he'll be like, "Yep, I know it." And then, we'll send each other sort of screenshots of like, yeah, remember this shot in Hamlet 2 that looks like this?" And,
You pull out a
it
movie from behind you, put it in, take a
Yeah!
screenshot.
You know, if there's something that I'm writing, I have a World War II drama that I'm like, yeah, it's like Stand By Me meets Lord of the Flies meets Saving Private Ryan, and then I'll pull them and I'll watch them and study them and listen to the soundtracks while I write and just sort of uh, immerse myself a little bit,
It's
and I enjoy
incredible.
it. Yeah.
You spoke of Lost and Picard and Doctor Who and Buffy. Is there a role on any of those that you loved so dearly that you wish would have, had you been
Oh.
acting at that point, would have been your role?
Gosh, that's tough. That's tough because, on so many of those shows, the actors I love those performances where you cannot possibly imagine someone else in
Hmm.
that role. You know what I mean? When they are when they just embody that role so well, and you realize as an actor too, I think sometimes it's very easy as actors to get bitter and jaded when you audition and you don't get it, and then you're like, "Well, I don't wanna watch that movie because I auditioned for it and I didn't get it," and then, you watch that movie and you're like, "Oh, oh, that makes perfect sense, like, I get it, I see what they were going for, um" so I don't know, if you were to ask me, like, "Hey, what do you wanna do?" I would love to do more in the Star Trek world. If Buffy came back, I'd be like, "Yeah, sign me up. I'll be a watcher. You want me to be the new Giles? I'll be the new Giles." But I
Yeah.
don't think I would ever dare be like, "I could have done what Anthony Stewart Head did." No. But if it comes back, sure. If they're bringing Battlestar Galactica back again, I'll be there. Yes, please.
Did you
Um,
watch Ted Lasso by chance at all?
I did. I did. I did.
So Anthony Head in that just was so different. It was
Yeah,
wild.
so nasty and lascivious. But I
Yeah.
again, I uh I get a real thrill out of watching actors really transform. That's what I enjoy about acting is you do get to embody different people and different personalities, and I've been very fortunate to jump from someone like Jeffrey Dahmer to a Ramgod, a Fawn, to people that are playful and silly, and, I knock on wood, I've been very fortunate not to have been typecast in any way, so
Not
I'm
no, not a I mean, that is very interesting because you have played such a wide range. Well, going back to Feud, how did that
Mhm.
role come about? And I was going to ask, but I would assume the answer is absolutely yes. You were familiar with Victor Buono before?
I was and I wasn't. I was familiar with his work, but not sort of consciously familiar enough to be like, "That's Victor Buono."
Gotcha.
But I had grown up on sort of Batman from the '60s with Adam West, and there is, a wonderful animated film, I think I have it up here, called Flight of Dragons, that was one of my favorites growing up, that Victor Buono did a voice of, and then, the Planet of the Apes films, and so I he was in my periphery, but it wasn't until I auditioned for him that I was like, "Oh, okay." And actually, when I worked on Ant Farm, uh, Mark Jordan Legan came up to me and he was like, "Hey, one of the reasons you got this job, you reminded me so much of Victor Buono, and he's one of my favorite actors." And I now he reminds me of it all the time. Hello, Mark. Um,
That's
and
wild.
then when the audition came around, actually going back to Ant Farm, it's so wild how everything is connected in this industry. When I first moved out here, there was a show called iCarly that I must have auditioned for, you know, 8, 9, 10 times, and I never booked it. And you're like, why? Why don't they like me? But the casting director from that, Jenny Treadwell, had then moved to I think it was Dana's office that was doing Ant Farm, and she was like, "Hey, you should meet this British guy who'd be good for this role on Ant Farm." So she introduced me to that office, and then Jenny moved again to a company called the UDK, um, and they were casting Feud, and Jenny Treadwell made a vision board with screenshots of me and screenshots of Victor Buono side by side, and was like, "You should see this guy." And so then they brought me in. They were on hiatus, and they brought me in. They didn't have any audition sides, but they gave me material from Whatever Happened to Baby Jane to read in the audition. Uh, and, there were the sort of levels of inception of like, well, hold on, am I auditioning for Victor Buono, or am I recreating Victor Buono playing Edwin Flagg in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane within the show? And, we were having discussions of like, let's try one of each. Let's try one of you doing it as Victor Buono. Let's try one of you as Edwin Flagg and the performer. Um, and figuring it out that way. And yeah, I think I auditioned in March of that year, and then we didn't start filming until October. So I was sort of sitting on this information that I was going to be playing Victor
Ah.
Buono for sort of 6 months. Uh, and yeah, again,
Opposite, just a few unknown
just a
actors.
few, just a few. But again, the
What was that like? Because all three of them must have been people you absolutely adored from film. Susan, Jessica,
I yeah, I mean Alfred Molina,
Alfred, yeah.
Doctor Octopus. Don't mind if I do. Um, No, I mean, I'm very fortunate, uh, you know, sitting here and like, yeah, what a wonderful experience, what a wonderful opportunity. And then since then, other things have sprouted and grown from there that have uh, blossomed because of that show, like the director mentorship program, and there are wonderful creatives. Tate Taylor had seen Feud, and then he was like, "Hey, I got this role for you in this movie, Ma. Why don't you come and do Ma in Mississippi?" And then, you meet that circle of people, and they're like, "Come and be in our next movie. Come and be in our TV show for Apple. Come in." And so then, you work with all these wonderful like-minded people, and you find your tribe of people who let you play and explore, and yeah, what a treat.
Well, when you look back at Feud, what are some of the things that stand out as highlights of the experience for you?
Um, Gosh, I think it was the first time that I had played an historical figure that people could go onto YouTube and look and compare, and so I feel like I felt a little bit of pressure from that regard. And then I was also, I
So
think,
how much did you watch of Victor
oh,
prior?
everything.
I
I
assumed
watched
you'd
all the
say that.
interviews and everything. All the performances. I picked up all of his. He had poetry albums and all of his talk show interviews, and I did a deep dive. And then uh, his his nephew reached out to me as well. A chap called Wayne Erica reached out to me, so I would talk to him about it. Um, so yeah, I really sort of not to the I don't subscribe to sort of immersing yourself to be like, I became Victor Buono and I
Right.
walked around Hollywood and I asked people to call me Victor. I don't subscribe to that. But yeah, I researched sort of movement and mannerisms and vocal qualities, and that was a lot of fun. That's I really enjoy going onto set with some sort of new challenge or something to learn or something to do or something different, even if it's just a small role, even to get dark for a second, playing John Wayne Gacy in Dharma, to then be like, oh, okay, I haven't really used the Chicago accent before, and so I can immerse myself in this. And there was stunt work involved, and there was um, sort of the coordination to make sure that you're attacking someone safely, and how much control you have, and how much control your scene partner has in terms of coordinating. And I enjoy that, because then when you're on set, it's sort of alive, and um, it just doesn't feel like a job that you're there to just be like, just be here and phone it
That was
in.
so well done, so difficult to watch, but so well done, Dahmer.
Yeah, the whole show was a difficult watch, but some of those, I think, was it episode 6? I think Paris Barkley directed some of those shows where they really sort of focus on the victims.
Mhm.
Oh, they're so powerful. Yeah.
And Nisi.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
I mean,
Just
just
I've been
I can't remember the woman she played, but the fact that, people ignored that woman.
mhm. Yeah, I think I think it's
Were you familiar with
with Jeffrey
Jeffrey
Dahmer.
Dahmer?
Again, I think, sort of in my periphery, I've heard of him and I'd heard of John Wayne Gacy, but it had never been something that I had sort of sat down and opened my laptop and be like, "Today on Wikipedia, I'm gonna
Right,
go down this
but
rabbit
also,
hole."
growing up in the UK, it wasn't on the news like it was here in the United
Yeah,
States.
same thing, I'm sure if an American moved over to the United Kingdom, and someone was like, "Oh, Myra Hindley, huh? Oh,
Yeah.
Dr. Harold Shipman," they might be like, sure, yeah, I kind of
Yeah.
understand." But yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been very fortunate. I'm very fortunate to do what I love.
So, American Horror Story Delicate is your 5th
Mhm.
show with Ryan Murphy Productions?
What have we done? We've done Feud, 911 Lone Star,
Dahmer.
Dharma. I had done one episode of American Horror Story Apocalypse, um, where they needed someone very last minute, like 4 o'clock the night before. They were like, "We need you." I was like, "Okay." Um, And actually, had Brad Bucher was directing that episode, and I had just been shadowing him, as a director on 911 the week before, and so I think when I turned up on set, he was like, "You're not shadowing me." I was like, "No, today you'll be directing me." And actually then, he was one of the directors on American Horror Story Delicate this season. So we had a nice old catch up from there too. Everything is so connected, in this town very, very fast.
Um, Delicate, we just finished the first 5 episodes.
Uh-huh.
Um, what was it like working opposite Kim Kardashian? I mean,
Wonderful.
y
I think people have ideas or preconceived notions of what that might be like, but she was there, she was on set, she was present, she knew her lines, she took direction, she was hungry to make it work and to make it as good as it possibly can. I have no complaints. A lot of people have asked me like, "Oh, what was it like?" Sort of expecting some sort of salacious gossip about like, "Oh, you'll
No,
never
it's
guess what."
interesting though because you have, you know, she didn't grow up, I don't believe, with the love of movies,
Mhm.
studying the craft like you have. So, there's a little difference of what you're both coming to the plate with. So in
Sure.
you know, that
I
respect.
think,
But I love what you just said that she came hungry because
yeah.
I think you probably come just as hungry as you do today as you did on that first Doctor Who.
Mhm. Yeah. I don't sleep the night before starting a new job because, you know, I do want to do a good job and I do have ideas that I want to bring to the table. And working with Kim was wholly pleasant. It was a really nice experience. And sometimes you don't get that. Sometimes you get onto a set and it's hostile. And it's those wonderful experiences that you go, okay, it
And
doesn't have to be
thankfully
this
you
way
had that on
because
Picard.
yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a treat.
Did you
What a
worry
treat.
at all that it could, um,
Um,
change your perception, let's say?
yes, I think so, but I think my fears were put to rest so fast. Every single part of that process just made it more divine from, how warm Liz and Julie run their audition room to going into wardrobe and seeing how enthusiastic the wardrobe department is about something. And we're like, we've got this wonderful pinstripe suit, and you're going to have a cravat, and we painted your shoes gold around the rim. No one will ever see it, but we'll know. Um, and then working with Neville Page and Vincent Van Dyke effects on the prosthetics and seeing how excited they are, and then Jonathan Frakes, and then filming at Universal Studios on the backlot, and then meeting Jerry Ryan, and then meeting Patrick Stewart, who you would think like, oh, maybe I won't say anything to Patrick because maybe he doesn't have time for fans that are like, I'm so happy to be here. But he would sit on the couch between takes and say like, oh, Stoke on Trent, yes, I played the old Vic Theatre in Stoke on Trent, and you know when a set is warm and open and collaborative and there's just nothing like it, and then there are sets that you go to and you're told to sit in the corner and shut your mouth and you're treated less than, and they are not the shows that you
It's not a
talk
show
too
you
much
wanna come
about.
back to.
Yeah, and there have been shows that I've worked on that have been like, "Oh, that not for me, thank you very much," and then, I don't go back, and that's fine. Um,
But
and
that's a
it
great, lesson for you now with writing, directing, acting, how you will run your
yes,
shows and production.
exactly, because I feel like there's something in this industry where people are treated badly or lesser than, and you raise your voice and you're like, sure. Not sure this is how it's supposed to be." And people are like, "Well, this is just the way it is. This is the way it is. This is the way it's always been." And it's not because there are experiences. I worked on a show that's coming out in March called Palm Royale. Um, that was the most divine experience. Just incredible with incredible people. Kristen Wiig and Alison Janney and Carol Burnett
Oh,
with
I was
Ricky
like, I
Martin.
knew that name
Oh,
of the
what a
Oh, I can't
treat.
wait for
What a
that.
what a treat to get to work where everyone is treated with respect and dignity, but then there is that element of play and improvisation, and we're like, "Yeah, we'll let the cameras roll and just see what happens," and, like, "Where do you wanna come from? What do you feel? Like, what do you" and that it just has that spark and joy and, ah, the best.
And that's quite a cast as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that a
And
fun
all
role?
dreamboats, all just wonderful, wonderful
Well,
people and
Mr.
wonderful
Ricky Martin is
collaborators.
my dreamboat.
Um, so, yeah, when you have experiences like that, it
Who do you
really
play in
makes
Palm
the job.
Royale?
I play a character called Grayman, and it's where all the ladies he's, the chap who all the ladies come to get their wonderful outfits, in
Ah.
1960s Florida. So, it involves a lot of spray tan. It involves, but it's fun, getting to inhabit that character in that world and just getting to play. We just get to play for a living in that regard, and going to work every day becomes a joy. And what more can you ask for?
I love that. I've read somewhere that you said Dr. Death was your most challenging role.
Oh, I think with Dr. Death, Victor Buono had passed away, and so, yes, you can go and you can research. Dr. Death was challenging in that when we started that process, I think due to the nature of the show, there was more of a heaviness to it. Well, we were in lockdown for a start, and so it was more technically difficult because we weren't really blocking as much. We weren't really rehearsing as much. The second team would rehearse, and then we as actors would come down in our masks and our face shields, and then, hair and
Mhm.
makeup were sort of working in sort of full hazmat gear and aprons, and then they would take the masks off and they'd be like, "Okay, and go." And we would do the scene, and then masks on and sitting in separate corners of the room because those COVID restrictions were so heavy. But oh my gosh, what a delight Joshua Jackson is to work with. What a delight, the cast is a delight, and the directors were a delight. I think it was hard because Jerry Summers was alive at this point, the character that I played, and I didn't feel like after the trauma that he'd been through, Dr. Dunch, Christopher Dunch had, for all intents and purposes, performed 2 surgeries on him and essentially decapitated him. He was left quadriplegic. And
Oh gosh.
so there is in that, I never want because Jerry is this sort of big ebullient character with flames on the side of his car, and he's loud and he's tactile and he's friendly, and I never wanted him to be perceived as the butt of the joke or someone that was perceived as, "Oh my gosh, how stupid could he be to let this doctor perform surgery on him?" Everything came from a place of love for Jerry, that he loved his friend so much, and he was trying to help him out so much, and he adored his friend. And so I think challenging in that way that
Mhm.
uh, I felt sort of protective of him, and I didn't want someone who had been through such a traumatic experience to ever be perceived as um, stupid in any kind of way. And Jerry actually, as we were filming uh, all of my hospital scenes, Jerry passed away while we were filming it, and so it also lent that sort of heavier, dour
Uh-huh.
tone. Sort of levels on levels of stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
still a wonderful, fulfilling, creative process to go through. Yeah. Did I answer that? Did
Um,
I answer
y
the
Joshua
okay.
Jackson,
Uh-huh.
I assume you're gonna say yes, since this is your genre. Was Fringe one of your shows?
Yes, it was one of my shows, and I
Me
went in
too.
Fringe. I went in so skeptical. I went in like, this X-Files imitation," and it wasn't. It
I loved
wasn't.
it.
I enjoyed Fringe so much, and
Great
he was a
cast.
delight to work with. Josh, I had wrapped no, Josh, I think, had wrapped earlier in the day. They had shot Josh's scenes, and then I was doing all my courtroom stuff, and Josh stayed on set for an extra 6, 7 hours for me to wrap out of the show, um, just to say, "Hey, I didn't want you to wrap out without me being here and saying goodbye and giving you a plot." Like, what a kind, thoughtful gentleman to do that, you know? That's, just really considerate and warm, and you don't often find that.
Yeah, I love that.
Although, there was one day we were filming up on a rooftop, and you know how your mind sort of wanders in between setups, and we were outside, and, I'd seen Joshua, he was in my periphery, and then I started singing the Dawson's Creek theme. Not out of, "Yeah, I'm gonna sing." I just started was like, and I was like, "Oh, no. He's gonna think I'm making fun of him." But I wasn't at all, when you're a fan of someone's work and someone's
Yeah, yeah.
shows and your subconscious, plays games with you.
Absolutely, and I think as I can feel, your enthusiasm for the industry, for the genres is incredible. What has been is it Picard, would you say is your favorite so far, or
Gosh, yes, I think if you were forcing me to choose, I think,
gun to your
um,
head?
yeah, I mean, from being a fan, from being a child to having that experience and it being everything that one could have hoped for and more. Yes, but I take away wonderful things from so many shows. Feud was a wonderful experience for me. Doctor Death was a wonderful. I got to live in New York for 6 months. That was a wonderful experience. The
But you've also played
Magicians.
such interesting characters, which has to make it really interesting for you, the actor.
Yeah, and I'm so fortunate. I'm so fortunate to do that. But if I can, I I like to take away positive experiences where I can, even if on-set experiences are generally negative, then I can be like, "Well, you know what? That props department was lovely." And then you run into them again, 4 or 5 projects down the line and be like, "Ah, remember that show? Yeah, too."
You
But,
remember that one? Yeah.
yeah, but you meet along the way like-minded people on cast or crew or makeup or props or special effects artists, and you're all in it together. You're all there to do a good job and make art and collaborate. So you find your tribe as you go.
Absolutely. Well, before I let you go, you've mentioned some of, you've got a ton of things out in the universe, your own
Mhm.
projects. If you could pick one right now that could be made, which
One of
project would
my
that?
one of my projects? Oh
Yes.
my gosh. I have a World War II drama that, is sort of spinning its wheels that I would love, to get made. I wrote it in 2014, and it's been through numerous rewrites, and now it has a production company attached, and now it's out for financing, and it's, a group of children in World War II that find a crashed German bomber on the outskirts of town in the woods, and they find a lone Nazi survivor inside, and so then they sort of take the law into their own hands, and things go horribly wrong. Which is where
Wow.
the Stand By Me and Lord of the Flies sort of comparisons start uh,
Wow.
coming into
I'm the
play.
child of two Holocaust survivors, so count me
Oh my
in.
gosh. So yeah,
Count me in.
that's what I would love to make. But I have
Where
other
did the idea for that come from?
gosh, My grandfather went through the sort of tour of Europe. My grandfather, Frank Cooper, went through Normandy and went all the way to Berlin during World War II. And I never met him because he came back home to Stoke-on-Trent and then was killed in a mining accident 2 years later. Um, and so, we had all of his medals and letters and sort of all these documents. So I think World War II's always had some sort of fascination for me. Um, and then, sometimes I just sit and think about ideas and I'll just jot them down. And then now I have final drafts with 8 different things on the go at the same time, and they all jockey for position in what I'm in love with the most. And I keep telling myself, no, I'm just going to write something that I don't care about that I can just sell. And then you write it and you fall in love with it, and then you're like, oh no, I want to direct this one, and then like the next one I'll write it, and then I don't care about it, and then you write it and you're like, oh no, I love this one too. This one's mine. Um, yeah, writing.
Well, you're coming back when that World War II drama comes back to talk about it.
Yes, let's please. Well, it's a deal. It's a deal.
I would love that. Dominic, such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for spending the time.
Yes, thank you, Alan. This was a pleasure.
Same here. You have a great afternoon.
You too. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you to Dominic Burgess for stopping by this afternoon. If you haven't watched Feud and American Horror Story and Dahmer and all of his great projects, please do so. Star Trek Picard, Doctor Who. Please join me tomorrow when actor, producer, and writer Marshall Hilliard, who played Hart Jessup on Guiding Light, joins me live. If you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do so down below. Turn on the notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows. And as you know, you can stream The Locker Room on your favorite streaming platform. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow. Be safe.